In today's video, I want to talk about the things that need to happen in Dune Part 3/Dune Messiah. I'm not sure if they're going to call it Dune Messiah. I feel like they're just going to call it Part 3. So I recently just went back to read Messiah in the first book. And yeah, I really do feel like it's going to be a very loose adaptation just because of the way Part 2 ended. The plot points and story threads it left loose that we need to, tie together. I feel like, they can't really make a one-for-one adaptation of Messiah. The first thing is Chuning's stories. So basically, if you're a fan of the books, Chuning has a very different story than her book counterpart, in these newer films, people say that they updated it to make her less of just a standstill, just wife, love interest kind of character and kind of give her her own agency. Some people like it, some people don't, it's up to you. But I just feel like if you're going to make these changes, you have to give us a good enough story to, actually care about, how she feels and what she believes in and what she's doing. So if they're going to do it, give us a really good story to go off of. And, I feel like Villeneuve can do that, but it's also going to be very difficult as well because another point that I bring up later, she ties into. So Chuning, that's my first point. Give us a very good story. My second point is Paul finally becomes the villain / anti-hero. Well, not finally, I say fully. He fully becomes the villain / anti-hero. If you read Dune Messiah, you know that Paul, compares itself to very horrific figures in not but world history, and you just know that some people are drawn off by that and might post it. I mean, on TikTok, some people in the comments said they want the newer films to keep that part out of it. I kind of disagree with that just because, I feel like it's a big part of his character. I'm not sure how true this is. I've heard this on Reddit from different fans, but apparently that Frank was very upset after the first book came out and people, looked at Paul as white savior hero. I'm not sure how true that is, like I said. So Frank decided to, turn this on his head and make Paul not the hero. And even in the first book, there are very hints and foreshadowing towards Paul's corruptness or his how far he would go to achieve what he wants, things like that. It was always in the first book, I feel. So I feel like it was always on Frank's mind, and he was really upset when people didn't get the point he was trying to make. And I just don't want to sit here and act like Messiah Paul is just this evil mustache twirling bad guy or anything. He's still a good guy. That's why I kind of say anti-hero. I kind of lean more towards an anti-hero. Paul isn't really the villain. He does destroy his enemies, but his enemies also try to destroy him. But he knows that he's the cause for a lot of horrific things that's been happening across the galaxy, all in his name, his family's name, and Muad'Dib. A whole genocide across the galaxy has happened. He isn't just guilt-free. Paul understands that his decisions have consequences and things like that. I just want to see more of that anti-hero side. He doesn't have to be full bad, evil villain guy, but I want to see some of that anti-hero side. So this is the point where I was talking about earlier. So the twins are gonna get foreshadowed. So on TikTok, I said that the twins get foreshadowed. So the twins are Leto the Second and Ganima. And I just said foreshadowed because, if you saw the way Part 2 ended, it just Chuning and Paul wasn't, a happy couple. So it just didn't seem like, in one movie we can get that whole resolve and then also her getting pregnant and then also a 9-month childbirth, So in my TikTok post, I just said, let's foreshadow the twins. Also because, looking how Villeneuve did Part 2, where he had Aaliyah just be like a fetus, and her Aaliyah was basically never born. She was just like a fetus, and also in one of Paul's visions. I really didn't like that. Aaliyah's one of my favorite characters in the book, but oh my god, it's a whole other point. Let me stay on point. Let me stay on point. So yeah, so the twins need to get foreshadowed because I feel like we're not in the position to actually have them born, because if you had read Messiah, at the end of Messiah, Paul sees through Leto the Second eyes to stop Skytel. So yeah, they are, well alive by the end of Dune Messiah books. And I just feel like, if Villeneuve plans on Part 3 being the last film, we still need to leave this door open just in case 5-10 years from now, him or someone else wants to do Children of Dune. So a hint or foreshadowing to their birth, or actually seeing it, would be perfect for that movie. And it doesn't have to come anytime soon, and he doesn't have to be the one to do it. But I would really want to see an adaptation of Children of Dune. So yes, I just really feel like, we need to at least foreshadow and hint, if not outright show them. But if this is his last film, I also understand why he didn't include that, because he wanted to resolve the story that he told from Part 1 and Part 2, not so much stick to book continuity and stuff. Alright, so this next point is I want to see Skytel and Gula Duncan. And I mean, this is an obvious point. If you've read Messiah, they're gonna be where they should be in Part 3. Once again, I'm not sure how close of an adaptation Messiah is to Part 3, but they should be in there hopefully. hopefully, I know Robert Pattinson was cast, and a lot of people saying he was cast for Skytale, so that'd be cool to see. You know, we see like the face dancers, shapeshifting, all that cool stuff, and Gola Duncan as well. Like, very excited to see Jason Momoa really play this character too, because like his character of Hate is so very different from just like book one Duncan Idaho. He's almost like a Hate really gave off like AI robot, like no soul kind of vibes to me in Dune Messiah, which is not what, you know, Duncan Idaho gave off in Dune 1. But as you know, towards the end of Messiah in the future books, you know, he starts to become more of a person, I'll say. So I'm just, you know, really excited, and I want the Bene Tleilaxu to be, you know, done well. And I'm not gonna say explain, but let's just get some of them. So like, my biggest gripe with part 1 to part 2, we left so much on like the table, and I understand it's a lot of stuff. This is why Dune is such a hard film to adapt. I mean, this is why Dune is such a hard book to adapt into film. And you know, stuff like the Space and Guild that we just couldn't get into. It's like, I want to see those fish people, Chom. We got a good amount of Bene Gesserits, but we didn't get to see, like, you know, we just didn't get to see those like smaller things in the universe that, you know, make the universe go round. Like, we needed more scenes with the Emperor. We needed more scenes of just like, you know, the people behind the scenes, the Bene Tleilaxu. We need to see some of them. So let's hopefully see more of them and see the strength that they're pulling behind the scenes, and you know, let's learn about some of their goals and ambition for the Empire and Galaxy. All right, so this is going back to my point from earlier. It is Aaliyah's story. So like I said, part 2, we saw her as a fetus. It's like a fetus baby, and then like in a hallucination prescient scene played by Anna Taylor-Joy. I believe that's her name. If it's not, I'm gonna be very disappointed, but I believe that's her name. Yes, Anna Taylor-Joy, that has to be her name. So yeah, so that was cool and all, but man, did I really want to see her. I wanted her to be the one to kill the Baron. It was cool to see Paul just walk up and stab, you know, Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, but I really wanted Aaliyah to do that. So she's like a baby, and she just fucking hates him. You know, it's crazy, but she has one of the most craziest stories, because after she kills him, she starts getting hunted by this guy, and that doesn't start in Messiah. It starts in Children of Dune. We still needed that, like her killing the Baron in part 2 to set up, you know, her being like hunted by this guy. But like I said, I don't feel like Villeneuve is going that direction. I feel like he doesn't want to do anything after part 3. So, you know, maybe she's not gonna be possessed by her like grandfather, and that really sucks, because she's a very tragic character inside the story. You know, they call her Saint Aaliyah of the Knife. Okay, people are afraid of her. Like, people were afraid of her the moment she was born, just because, you know, she was a pre-birth. You know, her mother was drinking the water of life while she was in the womb, so she had all these memories of all her ancestors, male and female, before, and it just really messed her up. She really never got to live a life of her own. Like, Paul and Jessica drank the water of life. They were much older, and you know, Aaliyah hadn't even been born yet. She hadn't even like learned how to walk. That's like the tragedy like in her story, because, you know, I'm not gonna say Paul had a choice, or, you know, any of these people had choices. I feel like, you know, it was kind of like destiny. Like, it was predetermined. Like, Paul was gonna end up on Arrakis, and, you know, his father was gonna end up dead no matter what. But I just feel like, you know, in the case of Aaliyah, it just really seems like she just did not have a choice, because she wasn't even born yet, and she just got all this stuff thrown on her. She's just overloaded with memories and other people's emotions. Like, it's just a very tragic backstory. So yeah, I just want to see more from her as a character, and just, you know, I don't know what you could do with her, because, you know, they've changed so much from the books. But just like I said with Chani, just give us a real good story, and we're here for it. And my final point is Paul's final walk into the desert. So basically, also spoiler warnings for the last time. So basically, in Messiah, after Paul is blinded by his enemies with the stone burner scene, and yeah, if you know, you know, because, you know, someone in the comments of my post actually said like that scene will feed generations, and I felt that, bro, just because like when I first read that in the books, I was first like, oh my god, like it's like hyping up, but then like by the time it got to it and Frank's describing what's happening, like all of Paul's men are trying to like cover him up, and everybody's trying to like get down and cover up, but Paul's like, it's too late, and then this, you know, he's blinded. So yeah, so basically like a stone burner goes off, and it blinds most of men. And in Fremen culture, once you're blind, you're like worthless. You should like give your like water to the tribe. Paul, some kind of way Paul can still see his prescience. It's allowing him to see things, and he's visualizing them. So, you know, this really adds on the mythos of Paul Atreides, because he's already looked at this Messiah kind of figure. He's believed to be blinded, but he can still like see, like I said. Then like towards the end, he uses his sun eyes to kill Skytale. Super cold, old. It's kind of cool, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I did say he was an anti-villain, anti-hero, but man, it was kind of cool, bro. It was kind of cool. And towards the end, Paul just walks off into the desert, and you know, he doesn't tell anyone, and it's like his final walk into the desert, so everyone just presumes, you know, he's gonna die out there. And it's also said that, you know, after Paul does like kill Scott Tail, and you know, he's lost Chani and all the other things he's lost towards the end of the books, he finally cannot see. So I'm not sure if, like, you know, his like vision was coming from whatever, but towards the end of the book, he can't even see anymore. He just walks off into the desert. So it's kind of like a proper ending for his story. And like I say, he still has his 2 kids that, you know, continue the series, and he's not dead yet. You know, I don't want to spoil anything, but he's just not completely dead yet. You know, he does come back in the next book. This would be a very cool scene to, I feel like, end the trilogy of movies off on. Just Paul's final walk into the desert blind, and, you know, leaving his faith, you know, very ambiguous. You know, we don't need to see if he lives, survives. We don't need to see any of that. So yeah, these are just the things that I think should be in the film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like I said, follow me on TikTok. I'm gonna leave a link to my TikTok, and also subscribe to my YouTube as well. I want to make, you know, more videos like this. If it sucks, leave a dislike, I guess, man. And yeah, so if you already follow me on TikTok, please, you know, let me know in the comments. Leave your TikTok name so I can follow you back.